this. Hello, hello, and welcome to the second day of the relationship remodel, day 2, Careers Beyond Limits relationship remodel. This is a vision board series. It's a 2-part series. And yesterday, just a quick recap, if you're just joining us today, welcome to the party. As I always say to my clients, you're right here, you're right on time, you're not late, you're right on time, and you don't need to catch up. So you're just here, and that's all that matters. So welcome to the party. So day 1, we went through the relationship that you have with yourself. So we really took a deep dive into our core values, our joys, some of our needs as humans, and then also some of our strengths and maybe some of our opportunities that we have for growth. And when it comes to our relationship and spending this time with ourselves, we did a self-care meditation, which was pretty powerful. And so if you missed day 1, it really focused on your relationship with yourself. And the biggest theme there is knowing yourself so that we can connect with other humans, right? And so knowing some of the tendencies and the triggers and our emotions in ourselves and being very aware of what's happening in our nervous system can really give us some key indicators and some clues as to how other people in our life, in our world, in our business, in our household are going through the same exact things that we are. And all too often we forget that we're human too, and we like to point fingers and like blame, shame, guilt, all these things. And so today I want to take a really nice deep dive into the relationship that we have with others. And today I'm going to offer you 3 tips to hopefully help you bridge some gaps, perhaps break down some barriers to building the most authentic and deepen your relationships. So if you have a notebook nearby, I would highly recommend just take some notes. Feel free to post in the chat. If you're catching this on replay, please send me a message. I'd love to connect with you. Screenshot this, do some clips, share it on social media, because the world needs these messages. We are human beings and we're meant to be connected. All right. So we're not meant to do this thing alone. And it takes a lot of effort to try to understand all of our emotions and all the things that are going on in this world. And there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of challenges out there, and each and every one of us, each and every day, are going and growing through something. And so I think this is so powerful for us just to pause and consider what's happening, not only in our life, but what's happening with the people that are around us. So for the first step that I really want you to focus on as we think about relationships with others is this word called empathy. So empathy is really feeling with someone. And Brene Brown does a lot of work on empathy. And I'm an emotional intelligence and diversity and inclusion consultant and coach. And I work with many teams and corporations and in groups and even sports teams and groups of women. So I work with a lot of different groups of people, and I use this word called empathy. And it's really gaining perspective of the people that are around us. And this works every single time, I promise, because our nervous system wants to make really fast judgments and very fast decisions about what's happening in our life. And so the nervous system, I shared with you this yesterday, is we feel the emotions first. They boil, or this excitement comes in, right? And these neurons and all of the waves and the triggers and the emotions happen from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. And then there's this thing in the middle where our reasoning happens in the middle of the brain. That's also called our filter. Okay. And I say this to you not to get like super geeky, but it's science, what's happening in our body and our brain, and everyone's going through it. And so this is why empathy is so important, because when we gain perspective and we stop and we pause and we slow down and we understand that our brain is processing things really fast, hundreds and hundreds of emotions every single day, Our brain is processing this every single time we look at our phone, every time we check that email, every time someone sends us a message. It's constant decision making. All right. And so many times, if that filter doesn't work properly and we don't pause and consider what's happening, then many times we say or do things that we don't mean, or maybe we think too fast or speak too fast or react instead of responding with perspective. And so perspective taking is so important, is crucial. And there's so many of my clients are like, Crystal, you always know what I'm thinking and you always meet me where I'm at. You get me. And this is like the best thing that I just love to hear it, because because it's work. Like, I have to gain perspective with my clients. I have to gain perspective with every conversation that I go into, every business meeting, every presentation, even right here, right now in this moment. I have perspective of what you need in these moments. What do you need to hear? What kind of pitch in my voice? What kind of questions do I need to ask? What type of personality type do you have? How do you wish to be communicated with? Who's on the other side of this screen right now? And I'm talking to you. And I'm thinking about you as I'm talking. So this is a lot of work. It's hard, and it's a skill. It's an emotional intelligence skill. It's social awareness of gaining perspective and empathy for what's on the other side of your communication and what's on the other side of the relationship and the impact that you want to make. Gosh, I hope the internet gods are on our side, because there's a nasty storm. I don't know if you can hear the thunder. But I'm thinking there's perspective, right? I'm thinking, oh gosh, are they hearing that? So inside my voice, inside my head, that voice in my head is saying, oh gosh, they're gonna be distracted by this. There's a storm, the internet's gonna go out. Reel it in, right? And so our brain can go on these like random tangents. YouTube's playing in the background. Gosh, if you saw my screen right now, as an entrepreneur, I have like 50 tabs open. I have YouTube playing in the background. I was just talking to someone earlier this morning. I meditate every day so that I can start with this grounding presence. So I can really calm my nervous system so that I can utilize the brain waves properly to develop the proper empathy and perspective. And so this is really important. When we can gain perspective of who we're talking to, that it's like, it's not about us anymore. And that has been so powerful for me as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, going live on social media. I'm not thinking about me anymore. I'm out of my own head. I'm not thinking about my voice. I'm not thinking about what my hair looks like. I mean, I think I did a pretty good job putting myself together this morning, but I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the impact that I want to make in this world. I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you who needs to hear this message, how this is landing on your heart, and how it's going to impact the relationship you have with yourself and the relationships around you, so we can live a more fulfilling life. So perspective taking is huge, and this is the foundation of everything that we do. So how do we do that? We have to recognize that everyone is going through and growing through something. So we got to check ourselves. All right. So we have to recognize that everyone has traumas. Everyone has been through a traumatic incident in their life. Now, your version of trauma or hurt or pain or disappointment or exclusion, I'm a diversity and inclusion practitioner. So any feeling of all these negative feelings could be triggers, could be traumas, things that have happened in our life. We have our own version, our own experience that we carry around each and every single day. So everyone else is doing the same thing. Now, your version of trauma, your version of disappointment, your version of exclusion might not look like mine. It probably doesn't. Chances are it doesn't look anything like it. And so there's so many variables that go into play when it comes to perspective taking, and having a deep level of understanding to create empathy. Now, here's the point. Here's a good point. just because you haven't been through what I've been through and I haven't been through what you've been through doesn't mean we can't have empathy. And that doesn't mean we can't understand each other or put ourselves in your shoes. And this takes a deliberate act to reach outside of yourself and say, okay, put yourself in the moment. And some of you are like, I'm not emotional, just get to the point. Like, I don't have time to get through that. But I'll tell you, if you want to deepen relationships, you have to go through this and try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and walk through a situation. Like, if they're telling you something difficult that they're going through in their life, start to like literally be present, look in their eyes, feel it in your body of like, wow, look at their reaction, their facial expressions. Maybe they're crying. Like maybe they're just, you see the pain. You can see hurt. You can see hurt in people's eyes, especially in pictures. I'm very aware of that. I can see so much hurt when I look at pictures. When I thought I was happy, I was like smiling for the camera, right? And I was in great shape. And I was proud to be on camera, but I saw hurt in my eyes. So this is super important when you can gain perspective. And if you can see hurt, this is where we can be curious. And we can start to gain some perspective and sit with people. And this is how we deepen relationships. We listen and just listen, no judgment, and just be present. Okay, this is so, so important. Listening. So I want to go over the definition of active listening. It's not doing burpees or jumping jacks while you're listening to someone else and being distracted and being on your phone and blah, 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 and computers playing. Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, keep talking. Blah, blah, blah. No, active listening is being fully present and listening with the intent to understand, not with the intent to respond. And this is a really, really hard skill to develop. And it's a main form of perspective taking and empathy because we're not here to fix all the time. We can't want things more than they do. And many times people that are going and growing through things have blinders on. They can't always see the next step. They don't see the whole path that you do. Have you ever been in a difficult situation? You go to talk to someone, a friend, a family member, maybe a therapist, and like they just ask you a powerful question, or a coach. Like that's what I do. Those are my secret squirrel skills, is I can see things, right? Because I've been in a lot of negative spaces. I've been through health challenges. I've been through toxic relationships, abusive relationships with myself and my health and my career. So I can see things when I start to recognize certain things that people see, or things that they say, or their body language, or the hurt in their eyes, or the reactions, or even down to the breathing. I'm a marathon and fitness coach. I can feel, I can hear and see your breathing or your lack thereof, and pretty much recognize, and I'm so intuitive with some of the self-talk that you have. So these are really, this is like secret ninja skills. And if you can master these skills, you will deepen relationships. You will be more successful in business, in your life, in your family, as a mother, as a father, as a spouse, as a partner. Okay, so perspective taking is huge. Understanding that everyone is going and growing through something. And when we can actively be here, just present in the moment, chances are, if we're not thinking about what we're going to say next, there might be some more data that they're going to say that might change the game. And trying to sit back and just be patient and pause and allow people to go through their own process. I only take a couple private clients in my business, and I have a couple private clients right now. And I had a call with one of them yesterday, and they're like, I totally just talked for the last 20 minutes and totally solved a lot of my own problems. I'm like, yeah, I asked a lot of powerful questions, and you run in circles and then you come back to it, right? That's the most powerful thing. But if I stopped and I interrupted and I said, well, why don't you just do this? And you should just do this. And gosh, I've been there before. So why don't you just do what I did? Yeah, that works. Instead of like, Pause. What else is going on? What worked before? What do you think is the right answer? And if you've ever been in a conversation where the other person let you talk a little bit, and then you talked a little bit, and there's a balance, right? That's a good balance. When you have this like dance, when you're both being present in the conversation. And why am I spending so much time on this? Because it is so hard. Because we have the attention span of a gnat. Most of us, especially if you're creative, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're a mother, we don't have time. We don't have time for small talk. We don't have time for all this stuff. Life is busy. Things are being thrown away. Like launches are happening. I'm in the middle of a migration for my website. I have been living under a rock. Like this is too much. But if you want to build your relationships and you want to cultivate, we have to be present. We have to be patient. And so leading with empathy and curiosity and asking powerful questions instead of being fixers all the time, we're gonna make them the hero of the story. I'm giving you some secret tips behind the curtain here. So as a coach, I also, side note, if you're a leader, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're struggling in this area, I actually have a coaching 101 class. I'm a certified life coach and diversity coach and emotional intelligence coach and all these, I have all these certifications, yes. But the coaching conversation is asking powerful questions and leading someone through a journey to co-creative dance, to problem solve. Okay, so if you need help in this area, I teach many leaders, a lot of executives, a lot of people the coaching skill, and it is so powerful. So I don't really have time to go through that whole thing here today, but if you want support in this area and you want access to that, please reach out. I'd be happy to help you because the coaching skill has helped me in every area of my life, every area. So that's why I'm able to hold this space. Right now, I have a 6-month $1 million body academy. I have 18 women in there. I hold this space on Zoom for 18 women. And because of my coaching skills, I'm able to develop and hold the space and be empathetic and manage a conversation and manage people's emotions and look at it. And it's like this whole dance, it takes skill building and it takes empathy and perspective taking. All right. So I kind of alluded to the being curious and asking questions. So step one is empathy. So where can you gain some more perspective in your life? And I want to actually give you some tangible ways to do this. So before we move forward to number 2, which is being curious, I want you to write down 5 people in your life. The 5 people that you spend probably the most time with. I think this is super important. And I want you to pick one person in your life that maybe you're having some conflict with. Maybe you're struggling communicating with or connecting with, or maybe they have some triggers and they ticked you off and you just like wrote them off, or maybe there's some things going on. All right. I want to give you some tactical strategies to move through this. All right. And it takes you kind of gaining some perspective and doing some homework. Okay. So we're not pointing fingers. We're going to go, we're going to think about ourselves. Yes. And then we're going to gain some perspective and do a little bit of work before we reach out and talk to them. Okay. So I want you to write down 5 people right now. 5 people in your life that you spend the most time with. And then I want one of them to be one relationship that you need to fix or cultivate or really water. And I call it foster. So in my trainings with relationships, there's 4 F's, 4 types of relationships. So I want you to rack and stack them. So once you have your Fab 5, I want you to say, all right, is this a relationship that I need to foster? So cultivate, really spend time with, intentional time with the husband. Maybe it's the children. Maybe it's yourself. I don't know. Your Fab 5. You get to decide. No rules. You decide the rules. You get to design it. All right. So the number 1 is the one that you need to foster. Number 2, the one you need to fix. Okay. Which relationship do you need to fix in your life? So as you write down the Fab 5, maybe 4 of them are fostered and 1 of them is fixed. Number 3, the one you need to find. So there might be maybe only 4 people. Maybe there's only 3 people on your list right now that you spend the most time with. If your circle is small, totally cool. Hopefully I'm in your circle. Okay. That's all right. And I'm trying to take the word but out of my vocabulary. And when we're going after big goals, lofty goals, we're trying to level up, we might need to find someone. All right. Maybe it's God. Maybe it's a coach. Maybe it's a mentor. Maybe it's a therapist. Maybe it's a friend. I'll tell you, I've moved 4 times in the last 5 years. I don't have a lot of girlfriends. I don't have a lot of people I can just go to coffee with or lunch or brunch with. I build online communities. And so I don't have a huge group of friends that I can just call up and be like, hey, let me get out of the house for a little bit. I wish I could. So those are intentional relationships that I'm trying to find, right? But we're choosy with our circle, right? And that's okay. We're not just trying to find anyone. So this is part of the relationship building, is knowing who you are. Now cue yesterday's conversation, because we have our non-negotiables, our needs, our joys, our values, and we find people in our life that meet those, that match your values. All right. So that we can have powerful conversations that are going to help us level up. So we have your Fab 5 relationships that you need to foster, ones that you need to fix, ones that you might need to find. And then the 4th one is the one that you might need to fire. Now, firing takes a little bit of extra work. So you might have a conversation and you might not. It might just mean that you have to transfer some energy into a different area of your brain and your nervous system. They don't always need to know that you're firing them, okay? So that doesn't mean you have to commit to a dialogue, but step 3 is actually committing to a dialogue. So we don't know if that's going to happen yet. But if one of your 5 is not so fab anymore and it's sucking you dry, I need you to just be aware, and let's do that work. We're not going to be able to do it here today, but definitely reach out if you need support in this area. This is the work that we do in the $1 Million Body Academy, and it's also part of the work that we do in the Revival Retreat in Costa Rica. So we do a lot of this transformational energy work to help us build and build barriers, and not barriers, but boundaries, which is really barriers to protect our peace. And I know Julie's here in the house. Her word this year is peace, right? So if your word is peace and freedom, how are you going to protect it? You got to do this work, and we have to be intentional. And yes, it takes work, but anything worth doing, you're worth it. You're worthy of this time. You're worthy of this energy to level up your life, your health. Whoa, let's just stop here. No one is worthy of sucking you dry of all of your physical and mental health. No one. You are the only one that lives in your body and in your brain and in your nervous system. No one else. Okay, so you get to do this. You get to put in preventative measures, your recipe for success to protect your peace. Okay, so I went off on a tangent with the Fab 5 and the 4 different types of relationships. Okay, so I want you to rack and stack. Okay, where do you need some work with these? And then as we go into step 2, I want you to dive in and start to write down some notes from each of these people, because this is going to gain perspective. So step 2, we're going to be curious with our Fab 5. Okay, be curious. Now, yesterday we went through your individual value sets, your needs as a human. I told you, like, every time I go somewhere, I meet someone, I am totally verbal with my non-negotiables. And like, I cannot miss a workout. Every single day I move my body at least for 30 minutes, no matter what. I hydrate, I eat every 2 hours, and I need my naps. So if I need a nap, I do 12 to 15 minutes and I wake up like crystal again, like it's tomorrow. Like, it's a meditation practice that I do. I don't do it every single day, but if my energy gets so depleted, I know my body so much that I need to take a pause. And I make a deliberate effort to pause and shut my body down, turn off all distractions. I set my alarm, I turn off all the notifications, and I allow myself that space. but I tell other people. So that was part of yesterday's needs analysis and non-negotiables. So if you know your recipe, we also have to be curious about what other people's recipes are. If they've told you, or maybe we're gaining some perspective of some of the things that they're going through, some of the traumas that they're going through. And this is so important because if you're more in tune with your body and what you need, not everyone's going to need what you need. But if you have more perspective and you can understand and put yourself in their shoes, you may not be as judgmental and quick to sharpshoot or shoot people down when they say what they need. Or maybe you're able to ask questions. Hey, what do you need right now? Do you need a rest? Do you need to talk? Maybe you don't need me talking at you for 20 minutes right now. Maybe you just need some space. I'll tell you, when my husband is going through something, the one thing he does not need me to do is follow him around in the house and say, why are you talking to me? I don't understand. Like, I want to be social. No, I know that he needs time to process internally. And I also know his recipe that if he's internalizing something, it might take him 24 hours. He'll come back and then he'll start talking. But if I start nagging him and going and just following him around and going into the bathroom and just it's going to trigger him. So I use that as an example because I think so many times when we spend so much time with each other, we are in our own head of what our needs are, and we don't always think about what the other person is going through. So before we pass judgment, before we follow people into the bathroom, before we talk at them, before we, I think it's important to just take a pause, be curious. What do you think they need in that moment? What do you think their joys are? What do you think they're strong at? Because when there's conflict, there's typically an unmet need that's happening. So if their needs aren't being met or their values are being attacked, there's going to be conflict. And so when you can gain some perspective of like, okay, so I know that, for instance, maybe your husband or spouse or your business partner needs safety. That's one of their like top values in there. That's one of their needs. They need safety. They're not really they don't make a lot of risky decisions, right? If they need safety, start to understand, what does safety look like? Maybe it's you. I have clients that I work with that safety is so important, especially with women. We desire safety physically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, right? So there's a lot of women. And so this is the work that I do, is I help you unpeel, like, okay, so what does safety mean to you? What does this value mean to you? And when someone triggers you, we unpeel the layers of like, okay, why is that so important to you? And so when safety is being rocked, right, that typically means we're lacking some trust there. Now that can be trust with yourself or others. Now I'm getting really deep and I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but just recognize, maybe it's safety, maybe it's security, maybe it's trust. Have you been cheated on before? I know I have. And so there's times where I have to check myself when I don't talk. Literally, I've spent almost 6 years since I moved away with my husband, and we've been traveling. We've spent 3 times in the last 5 years, 5.5 years, 6 years, whatever. I can't even count anymore, where we spent more than 2 weeks consecutively together. We're apart a lot. We're both going in we're typically in 2 different time zones on the opposite sides of sometimes the world. I'm in Costa Rica hosting retreats. He's back in Louisville, or maybe he's in Georgia, or maybe he's in Tennessee, maybe he's in California, maybe he's in Utah, right? And so it takes a level of communication and trust. And so I have to check myself sometimes when we're not physically together and we're not communicating, or maybe I don't get to talk to him for an entire day. My brain does not spiral into, oh, he must be cheating, he must not love me. No, because those are traumas that can come up, and those are the stories that we tell. So we need to rewrite that if there's no evidence, and maybe his needs are different. right? And so there has to be this dance of perspective and understanding and trust and self-talk. No wonder why this is an emotional, like, roller coaster of life. So my crystal clear life planner is the 90-day action plan to embrace chaos and live a fulfilling life. Okay, so these are the tools. So we're intentional with gaining perspective, building relationships, identifying what's getting in the way, identifying our emotions each and every day, what's coming up, what's preventing us from living our best life and connecting. So we can be in tune and move. And we're not always going to get this right every time. We're human, right? So this seems like a lot of work, but I think if we just pause and we gain some perspective, have some empathy, be curious of what their needs are, what their values are, those can be really, really good indicators. And especially if you want to foster and water a relationship, capitalizing on what you know works well and what has gone right, do more of that. Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? So do more of that. What are they strong in? Have them be in their best light. What brings them joy? Do more of that. I know my husband is very analytical, but he's also very organized. He is very regimented. So when you think about perspective taking, we need to understand their personality type. Okay, so this is part of being curious. So I understand that he has a different personality type than I do. I'm very adventurous. I like a challenge. I like being out there. I love being creative. I love being adventurous. The last thing I want to do is balance a checkbook. Okay, the last thing I want to do is sit and organize and analyze numbers and a spreadsheet into a puzzle. He likes the challenge of solving problems and being analytical and taking data and organizing it, right? And so he takes on that part of our life, of our household. And that's okay, because we're both living in our best life, our best light and our best life, right? Because we're living in our strengths. So I plan the adventures. And I don't hate on him because he doesn't plan things and he doesn't like want to go to a comedy show and plan all these vacations. He's gotten better at it because he is now perspective taking with what I need. And honestly, the best gift you can do is plan something for me, because I'm always planning the adventure. I'm always the good idea fairy. So if you could plan something for me, gosh, that's a gift, because that takes some work off my plate. Okay. So like, that's how you can have this dance with perspective and being curious of people's personalities and meeting them where they're at. If you have children in your household, chances are they don't have the exact same personality as you. In fact, some of them are probably the opposite. Some of them might be similar. And if you have a favorite, someone that you connect with more, and then the other one, you're like, oh, why don't they just clean up their room? And why don't they do what I say? And how come they don't act and they don't react to me like the other one does? Why can't you just be like that one? Because we all have different personality types, and we all have different needs and values and strengths and joys. And so when we can gain this perspective and understand from their perspective and their lens, then we can start to meet them where they're at and start be a little bit more curious and less judgmental. Okay. So, and we are judgy people. Okay. So that is the normal human condition. I also teach unconscious bias. All right. So this is a psychological thing that our brain and our body does, because our brain wants to make quick decisions. We want to put people in boxes. The brain waves, there's actually neurons and lanes that your brain operates in. So it's part of a self-protective mechanism going way, way back, right, to a fight or flight when we were in the jungle, and that's safe, that's not. Well, there's a lion, there's a bear. Oh, that's not safe. Let's not go there. Let's stay over here in our comfort zone. All right. So the brain automatically makes these like snap judgments: safe, unsafe, good, bad, safe, unsafe, good, bad, da, 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 da. And so what happens is we're quick to judge based on what we see. And a lot of times it's 10% of what we see we make these judgments on. Okay, there's studies that show this. And that's why I teach leaders, I teach groups on how to think below the waterline and take some perspective of what else is going on in the situation, what else is going on in their life, what other facts do we need to know, and how do we need to be more curious about what's happening so we can connect on a deeper level. Okay, so I just want to level the playing field. I'm not trying to call you judgmental. We're all judgmental. I'm judgmental, but I've developed skills and things to put in place and measures and self-talk to slow down and improve my perspective taking so I'm not so judgmental, right? Whew, that was a lot. All right, so take a deep breath because we want to go into number 3. And so the first one is empathy, really gain some empathy and perspective taking. Number 2, be curious, okay? Always be curious. And then recognize what their needs are, what their joys, what their strengths, gain some deeper level of perspective. And then which types of relationships do we need to fix, foster, find, or fire? All right, so we have our Fab 5 people that we spend the most time with. So in summary, we have empathy, being curious, we have our Fab 5, and now it's time, now that we've done all this background, we've done this work on ourselves, we know the difference, right? So now we have our needs, our personality type, our perspective, our joys, our strengths, and now we're doing this work on the other people. Now, step 3 is communication, right? So how does this work? So we communicate verbally, also non-verbally. We communicate with a cell phone via text message, and we communicate via email. We communicate via telephone. We communicate face-to-face. Those are the main types, right? So what I want to just share with you is not everyone enjoys text messaging. Not everyone enjoys talking on the phone. Not everyone enjoys email. Not everyone enjoys face-to-face. And when we talk about face-to-face, not everyone enjoys networking. Not everyone enjoys being on stage. Not everyone enjoys Zoom. Not everyone just enjoys Microsoft Teams. I hate Microsoft Teams, by the way. So everyone has their own ways to communicate, their preferences. Sorry, I was like, bleh. Their own preferences. Okay, so also there's a generation, I teach generation gap training as well. So it's a part of being in a diverse culture. The diversity is, when were you born? Were you born with a cell phone? I didn't have a cell phone until I was 16, 17 years old. And I didn't have social media till I was what, 22? My stepdaughter, well, the first time I met her at the age of 2, had her own cell phone. And so the first time when I took her to the zoo, I'll never forget this moment. She spent the whole time on her iPad playing a game. I'm like, can we look at the giraffes, please? Like, I'm here to have a memory and some experience here, some face-to-face. And she's 2 on a phone. We can't change that. But what we can do is have some perspective of, okay, so is it a generational thing? Do certain generations text more often? Yes. Do certain generations need to know more data, more the why behind why we do things? Yes. Do some generations prefer just picking up the dang phone? Just answer the phone. And yes. Some people leave voicemails. Some people don't check voicemails. I'm one of them. My voicemail has to be full. Someone has to text me before I'm like, okay, I'll check my voicemails. All right. That's just not a means of communication for me. That was like a long time ago. But there's some people in my life that are just dead set on calling me, leaving me a voicemail. And so there's so many ways that we can communicate. So gain some perspective with your Fab 5. How do they want to be communicated? Think not about you, what you like. Yes, you want to think about what you like. However, if you want to deepen a relationship, you want to fix a relationship, you want to foster a relationship, or you want to find a relationship, you have to gain some perspective of how the other person needs to be communicated with or enjoys to be communicated with, and meet them where they're at. I have some people in my life that they're like, I can't make an appointment with you. I just need to call you when I have something on my mind. I'm like, well, that's not going to work because I have back-to-back appointments all day long. Like, there's even friends, even family members I have to put on my calendar. Like, I have to send you a calendar. Like, I'm sorry. I'm hiring a team so that I can have more freedom in my schedule, right? But right now it's jam-packed. I got a lot going on. So I have to communicate that and say, hey, it's nothing personal. But yeah, but I just want to call you because I have something on my mind and I have to tell you right now, and I'm the most important thing in the world. That's what it is. But when you don't have perspective and understanding of other people, then that's what happens. And then we miss opportunities to connect. So how do they want to be communicated? Also, it's really important to be in tune with the body language. So if you can see a person's face, if you're on FaceTime, you're on Zoom, maybe you're in real life, awesome. Recognize their body language and their tendencies. Do they look away? Do they look down when they're nervous? Do they, what do they do? So I call myself a people strategist because I study psychology and human behavior. So I geek out on this. Okay. So this is just what I do all day long. This is why I love helping people with relationships, because I'm so in tune with everything that's happening. I take a bird's eye view. When people talk to me and they have struggles in their life, I'm able to take myself out of it, watch like a hawk, like I'm at the top of the Empire State Building and I'm looking at their life and all the people and the reactions and the things and the timelines, and like these are my skills. These are my intuitive ninja skills. And so I'm able to really take that lens and just say, right? So if you can do that too, it can be so powerful. So recognizing the body language, recognizing the timelines, recognizing the traumas, recognizing the triggers, understanding what's happening in their life right now. And I was helping a client the other day. They responded and reacted to a text message, which was intended to be a joke from the other person. And the response was not so positive. And I started to walk them through it. I'm like, okay, what do you think that person was thinking? Well, they were thinking it was a joke. They probably thought nothing of it. And how did you take it? Well, the story that was happening in their head was distrust, that it was a dig, that it was an insult. They took it, they received it that way. It's a text message. But there was some laughing emojis and some other things that we have to understand that there's so many nuances that happens. And our perspective, and whenever there's trauma and triggers, whenever there's triggers or conflict, that's typically trauma responses that are coming up. So if you have some lack of communication or breaks in communication or some conflict, recognize, okay, what have they been through in their life? And you got to know your people. If you don't know what they've been through, and if you're not curious and you sit with them and understand that maybe they've had some tough times in their life and you have too. So where do your triggers show up? Where does your trauma show up in your responses? They're doing the same thing. And so on the other end of a text message or an email, that there's no emotion, there's no, body language. We tell ourselves all these stories and we're like, oh, and then we go into this rabbit hole and then we ruminate on it, and then days go by or sometimes months go by and we just live with that anger and that frustration. So my goal for you for tip number 3 is try to commit to a dialogue. But before doing that, recognize how they like to be communicated. What have they been through? What do you think they're going through? What do you think is in their head? Try to put yourself in their shoes right now. And if everybody did this work, we would have so much more happier and healthier relationships in our life. I can't tell you how many people that they're like, you saved my marriage, and that is so powerful. This stuff works. So my goal here to you today is to hopefully help you gain some perspective with others. Day one, we talked about ourselves, because perspective with us. So if you're just joining us for day two, make sure you go back and watch the first part, because it starts with you. And the more that you do this work, the more you're able to be in tune with other people's emotions and triggers and things that are happening, so that we can gain more empathy and meet them where they're at. Okay? But we have to look in the mirror first and see how this shows up in our life. Okay? And everything changed when I started to do this work. Everything changed in my relationships. I recognized that there were certain relationships that did not serve me anymore. When I started to see, like, where is this all coming from? What's happening? I'm picking up the breadcrumbs. I'm utilizing it as data to make educated, unbiased, unemotional decisions for my life to protect my peace, so that we can live our best life. So this is what this is all about. I hope that this message resonates with you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to end this session here today just by sharing just a little bit about Cruise Beyond Limits. Cruise Beyond Limits, we cruise beyond the limits that people, places, things, other people's opinions, other people's priorities. We cruise beyond them because they run our life a lot of times. And this stuff is uncomfortable. And our body and our nervous system wants to keep us safe, right? And so what happens is other people and all these relationships and all these things that happen in our life, we're carrying this around every single day. But you get to live a life of freedom and cruise beyond the limits that are placed in front of you. And you get to live your best life. And so sometimes these relationships, and this is part of the hard work, is recognizing with some of these relationships start to play a role in the limits that we place on ourselves, and that relationship that gets in the way of us living our best life. Okay. So this is the work that I do. I hope this helps you. This is all about holistic, emotional, physical well-being, physical and emotional wellness. It's a holistic approach to your life. Okay. It's not just a fad diet. It's not just a workout. It's about your emotional wellness and the relationship that you have with yourself, and how you're able to connect with others to live your best life, because we're not meant to do this life alone. So what I like to focus on is your mental and your physical fitness, your confidence and your mindset and your self-talk, and then the community that you surround yourself with. So who's your Fab Five? Who's in your inner circle? What's happening? How can we gain some perspective? How can we foster? How can we fix? How can we find more people? This is the magic. Everything in my life changed when all this came into play. And if you can put your values, your strengths, your joys, your needs, and your passion and your purpose all together, now that, my dear, is the ultimate freedom. And that is the ultimate living and thriving in life. When I put everything together and I'm at the top of the mountain in Costa Rica, I host retreats in Costa Rica. I have one coming up in May where I have 6 incredible women for 6 days. It's an all-inclusive transformational exploration. We're no longer like escaping from our life to get away, to check out with a book and the beach and the rays. No, we're going to engage and explore pieces of ourselves, to transform, to live our best life. It's not an escape anymore. I don't have to vacation anymore. I travel. I pick up and go, and I am the same person everywhere I go, and I'm just on an exploration of deeper meaning, more passion, more love, more zest, more connection with life. And so these are the tools that I love to give people and I love to help people with. So I hope this resonates with you. We're nearing the end of this session. So go out, be great, go cruise beyond limits, live your best life, because you get one shot. You have one brain, one heart, one body, one chance. So what are you going to do with it? Stop sleeping on your dreams. Do your best every single day, one step at a time, one day at a time, one repetition at a time. You got one shot. That's it. So I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. So let me know if you have questions. Reach out. I'm Crystal Laura Cruz on all the socials. So let me know, the Cruise Coach, Cruise Beyond Limits Consulting. Let me know how I can support you in any way and what has resonated with you. Please share this on social. Share this with a friend who needs to hear this message, because the world needs more great messages and more people in the world, starting with you and your ripple effect of your leadership, so you can help move other people as well. So go out, be great. I love you all. Cheers. Cruise Beyond Limits.